I'm Lorraine Gallagher, and I am the director of the Seaweed Company Green Turtle. We're based in Mulroy Bay in County Donegal. We are a child company of the Seaweed Company, which is a global organization. We have farms around the world, so India, Morocco. Our head office is in the Netherlands. So as I say, I head up our operations in Ireland. So what we do in Ireland is we have a seaweed farm. It's currently 24 hectares. And as of, I'll come into what we're doing now, but we established in 2019. So we seeded our first lines in 2019 in the October, and then of course we met into COVID in our first sort of harvesting season. So I guess since then, so much has happened. We've learned how to grow seaweed, which is a first major milestone, of course. And then, of course, we've grown seaweed. We now have organic certification on our farm, and we have launched or opened up a state-of-the-art food grade seaweed processing facility in Donegal, also as of this time last year. So this will be our second year of running our seaweed processing facility. So I guess that was the natural next step. Once we had learned how to grow seaweed, the next step is to process that seaweed. So yeah, really happy with where we've come so far. We, as of October, so our season runs from October until April. As of October 2023, we seeded as many lines in the water as the rest of Ireland combined. And we will then, of course, harvest our seaweed now in April, which is coming up very soon. So we're all very busy getting ready for that. Yeah, that's what we do. Busy doing all of that. And of course, in terms of the regenerative, we'll come on to kind of the intricacies and technicalities of that, I guess, in the discussion.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lorraine. And Folef, if you'd like to introduce yourself and the work you're doing in Camping Ca Savio.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Folef Hooft Graafland. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but for a number of years now, I've been working and living in the Venetian Lagoon in Italy. And I work for a campsite, a traditional open air campsite that is representing the old style mass tourism. So we have around 5,000 guests in our summer season coming daily. So I'm here wearing several hats, and actually the regenerative tourism is something that we are working towards. We are working towards understanding what that might mean and look like for a large scale company in the tourism industry. Another hat that I'm wearing is that I'm studying a master's at the University of Zurich in systems thinking, because what we see in the campsite is that us alone cannot find these solutions. We need to zoom out and look at this from a more systemic approach in finding solutions, but more importantly, finding pathways and partnerships outside of our own little environment. So those are the pathways that we are looking for the future solutions.
That's really great. Thanks for that, guys. So as I mentioned, Folef, Oisin referred to the increasing demand for nature-based solutions. But I'm wondering, and as we discussed earlier, a couple of weeks back, does that increasing demand, selling more bed nights, is that what tourism needs? Or I was particularly impressed with your response to that, so I might let you just recap on that.
Yeah, thank you. No, is the answer. I don't think we need to sell more bed nights. I think tourism is an industry that doesn't need to scale up. Tourism is an industry that needs to scale out or scale deep. It needs to understand better what it means, what its impacts are, but it definitely doesn't need to grow. I think degrowth has been discussed in many various ways and many different aspects of it. But I think tourism and the growing of tourism, it's more important that we scale out. We make partnerships local and regionally with people that have an interest and a partnership with our industries, but I don't think we need more bed nights sold, especially not in the Venetian Lagoon.
That's right. I understand you work quite closely with Tobias Luth in the Monviso Institute, and when I initially spoke to him, he nearly jumped down the phone when I suggested that Camping Ca Savio might be regenerative. And you've both echoed that it's not quite there yet. In fact, it might be a long way from it. But you are looking to establish, or maybe you have in a roadmap, what is that North Star for regenerative tourism?
So yeah, Tobias would be right. As I mentioned, we have thousands and thousands of people coming through our campsite on a yearly basis. So by definition, we are not sustainable in our consumption, in our transport, in our emissions output. But we are trying to create a North Star, and we're trying to understand what it would mean in the future to change some of these peaks that we have in tourism. And that's why, together with the Monviso Institute and with the university in Zurich, we are studying a systemic approach in regenerative and resilient thinking, because we can't do it alone. Simple example is school holidays are not determined by us, so people can't decide to come in different times of the year. However, we're trying to, together with the Monviso Institute, to create and to prototype really other examples of tourism. I might give a simple example of this. It's a systemic cycle tour where we take people into the lagoon to meet local connectors, but not only to visit them in a day or get them to pay a ticket, but to really engage with them, to have a dialogue, to have an exchange of knowledge, so that the tourist is not only seen as a product, but is actually contributing. And in that way, we're hoping to stimulate much more than just a touristic economy, but really on a regional level, support everyone so that we can change and grow together.
And I think it's that coming together and doing this work together. I meant to mention that in coming across your work, it was Alessia Fiorentina, a colleague of one of the employees of Etifor, sorry, that actually put us in touch with Tobias and Folef's work. And I think we discussed the importance of changing mindsets. And I think it's through establishing these connections and much like that, the mindset of your stakeholders from guests to staff, that is important to get that message out in that direction also.
So yeah, absolutely. It's one thing for us as a company to try and change, but we are engaged with many different stakeholders, one of which our most important stakeholder is our visiting guest. We need to take this visiting guest along on a journey towards change, because if we now today offer the most sustainable product, we would lose some of the businesses that we have, because people would say, no, we want something traditional. Not everyone is ready yet for the most innovating and sustainable solution. So what we're trying to do at scale, and this is where it becomes very difficult, is to communicate and meet the guest where they're at in their development towards a more sustainable future. We're trying to not impose anything on them. People are on holiday with us. They're not at school. We don't want to tell them what to do. A small example my colleague always gives: we can have the most sustainable showers and toilet blocks, but if a guest still comes and showers 5 times a day, we haven't resolved anything yet. So to change that mindset, that way of thinking, we need to approach it in a systemic way. We need to look at all the technical solutions, which we have. All the knowledge is there. We can talk about the financing, but we're there. But the behavior of the people, the knowledge and the willingness for people to change is something that only comes by creating awareness. We can't tell people how to behave. So you can imagine on a scale of 5,000 people what that means in soft communication, soft messaging. And this is something that we're trying to do by changing, as you say, by changing the mindset, not only of our guests, of various stakeholders. We have a huge plastic consumption, but not all of our suppliers are at the same stage in the journey as we are. So again, we're trying to look at it from a systemic point of view, making commitments short term to have long term implementations also. And we need to support our network of people and suppliers around us. And this is something that we're trying to slowly implement, but we can only go at the pace as what our environment is going at.
Exactly. I think that behavioral change piece is key. I've managed campsites on the west of Ireland myself, and my biggest bugbear was trying to get people to separate their waste into recycling general waste, and it's not something you change easily. So Lorraine, maybe in the context of opportunities in the world you're involved in, do you see opportunities within the seaweed sector at the moment? Has demand increased, and how is, I guess, cultural norms and behavior influencing that?
So yeah, that's a really interesting point, and we also see something very similar with us. Aquaculture has been around for a long time, thousands of years, and aquaculture in Ireland is very well established. However, seaweed aquaculture in Ireland, or seaweed farming, and therefore seaweed consumption, not just in Ireland, but in Europe, is low. There's a huge demand, there's a huge excitement, a huge interest, both in seaweed products and green products, but also in vegan or vegetarian products. And you know, seaweed ticks all of those boxes. But again, it's about offering a product, so a solution to the customer whereby they are ready to take from you, and that is by focusing on the end product. So of course we're farming and we're processing, but in the end we also have a parallel department working on the market, because the market is something we also have to establish within Europe. And so we're growing really consistently fabulous product now, which was a learning curve. We have organic certification. It's a really beautiful product. It's very tasty, but most people don't know what to do with that product. We don't know how to include it in our diets as much as we really want to. So it's really, really interesting. We've got to go with the people and with the market and develop that market. So one of the solutions that we have developed is a product called Sea Meat. So Sea Meat is a blend of seaweeds, and it is a blend of seaweeds that will, our idea in turn is that it will replace 25% of a beef burger or a pork burger or a beef burger or a meat burger. The idea is that we target flexitarians, so not that we necessarily target a vegan or a vegetarian market, but again, recognize that we want to bring people on this journey with us. So seaweed, by adding seaweed to sort of a terrestrial burger, by approximately 25%, we are reducing the carbon footprint there. We have zero inputs, really. When we put our seaweed into the water in October, we seed it on a line, and then it grows naturally with the nutrients that are in that water, and we harvest it again in April. So there are no inputs there. We're increasing the nutritional composition of that burger. So we're adding fiber, we're adding a lot of different nutrients, and of course the flavor composition. So seaweeds have a natural umami. So you might be familiar with monosodium glutamate. So the glutamate was originally extracted from seaweed. And so by re-adding seaweed in its natural form to our food, it increases that flavor composition. So again, it's about sort of looking into the future and seeing how can we bring people with us and looking for those solutions. And then, of course, it's about our stakeholders on the other side. So our retailers and our beef processors, who also really want to make great decisions in the food that they're offering, the retailers, the food that they're offering to their customers, and sort of working with the current food system to make it better continuously.
Great, thanks. It's a challenge in itself, educating all along that value chain. On the other side, from the supermarket shelf or your dinner table plate, you've discussed the challenges with me of harvesting in itself of your seasonal staff. And then we were discussing that, is there possibly, or is there the potential for a synergy or a solution in working with tourism businesses like Folef's, who have seasonal employment challenges at other times of the year?
So yeah, so we have as I say, a huge interest in what we do. There is a huge demand for better products and more nutritional products. But of course, like any business, we are facing, like any organization, we're facing like the cost of running business, or the cost of doing business, or the current challenges of business. But then again, because we are a farming business and we are seasonal, we have two very busy periods in the year currently. So October, when we seed our lines, we need a lot of people for a short space of time. And then again, in April, when we harvest our lines, we need a lot of people for a short space of time. We're working on the water, so we need people to be trained. We need people safe. We need PPE. Comes with it with a lot of costs, and we need people who are reliable, who will be there, and who are hardworking, of course, because it's manual work. And yeah, it's intense for those few weeks. So yes, the challenge there, of course, is getting sort of workers and people to work with us for a short space of time that I guess we can train up, for a couple of weeks, and then they will work with us for a few weeks. So I know it's something we sort of spoke of almost off the cuff, whereby we had said it would be wonderful if there was a sort of a circular system whereby we could share seasons, with each other or so. But I don't think there's something like, yeah, we're not there yet. We're still at the space where we are yeah, we're hiring locally and we're training locally, and therefore yeah, it's still a challenge. But I'd love to see something, in the future whereby we could share employment, from. However, I would say that potentially not across necessarily industries, but something we are looking at in Ireland is sharing human resource from species to species. So let's say our salmon farmers or our mussel farmers or our oyster farmers, they are also seasonal, and they have different or complementary seasons to our seaweed. And so what we'd really like to see there, and it's something we have spoken to Bord Iascaigh about, is potentially having a pool whereby we could train. And then, of course, by sharing different seasons, we are also cross-contaminating our knowledge. We're actually, not bringing new people on every season and then losing, but these people that we could offer more of a career to, rather than just a job, but a career to become integrated into our community, into our company, and again, the other companies that work with us. We are very uniquely placed in Mulroy Bay, whereby we have a very sheltered bay. We have oyster farmers, mussel farmers, and finfish farmers in the bay. So we're currently working on a really lovely project. It's IMTA, so Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture, and it's where these different species work together, share nutrients, share seasons, etc. So it's something that, yeah, we absolutely feel like there is a future in coming together, sharing knowledge, resources, learnings, of course, and then, of course, that comes into sharing knowledge about the biodiversity of the area. So, continuously making sure that our mussel farmers, who are our neighbours, are happy. Our finfish farmers, they're making sure we're happy. So we're all working together.
I think there's an opportunity there in tourism as well. I'd like to come and see what happens on the farms. Folef, in the interest of time, I might just ask, is there any challenges tourism-wise that you would like to highlight for other businesses looking to go in a regenerative direction?
So yeah, I think there's many many challenges in all sorts of industries, but the main challenges that we're finding in tourism, and particularly on our campsite, is our changing our business model in our existing business model. We are receiving as I mentioned, 5,000 guests a day. They all arrive by car. So our emissions output is huge, huge. We try to work against those things by offering people train tickets, so that we change the habit of people coming by car. We have created a huge biodiversity garden in the middle of our campsite at the expense of having more houses. So we're trying to mitigate certain impacts that we're having, but as we mentioned before, we're finding challenges in changing the mindsets of our staff, of our stakeholders, and not only us as a campsite on an individual level. I mentioned that I currently am involved in a executive master of systems thinking, because I think that many of these problems are not only linear, they are very, very much need approaches outside and interdisciplinary. We need to look at it not only us with our local community or our local municipality or our regional government. It needs to, and I think that that's what's coming out today at the round table conversations earlier on as well. It needs to be looked at a much more interdisciplinary approach, and that requires a mind change, a mind shift. And I think to create the awareness of that is what is our biggest challenge.
I think it's right, Elias. All of us need to be involved, right? But thank you very much. We've come to the end of that first 20 minutes. Guys, a big thank you to both Lorraine and Folef for joining us here today, and we'll welcome you back again.
Thank you, everybody.